good. They couldn't see and they just didn't understand. And looking in the mirror, they were fools at either hand.
Welcome back. 10:23, a little bit of change. Hey, coming down the pipeline, the third of three. We're here. Free spiritual experience series, Raising Your Spiritual IQ, is coming back to Riverbend Yoga on Thursday, May the 1st at 1 p.m. And this time, soul travel exploration.
Yeah, explorating. Yeah. Sounds intense, but it's easy and it's great.
Well, and we got Chuck and Sheila in the studio. Chuck, first time in here. How are you doing, man?
It is doing great. Thank you for having us.
Well, Sheila's out and living in L.A. with my best old ex-friend Ray. You know, or Flores, Sheila. I'm still waking up today, but we've had a great time talking about these things, and really just a really enlightening conversation each and every time. And coming up on Thursday, May the 1st, you're our soul, internal creative atom of God, and discover the wonder of you. What does this kind of encapsulate?
Go ahead.
Well, soul travel is a unique experience that each of us can have. We're soul, okay? We're not just this physical body that we're in right now. We're in a physical universe experiencing many different things, but ultimately we're meant to learn to find our way back to God.
Yeah.
And we are sparks of God. We are an atom, and we are divine in that we can connect with divine love, which emanates from God and flows back to God. And soul travel is that experience of finding your way to travel back in consciousness and find that higher awareness.
And what does that look like? Just for somebody who, isn't too experienced in this yet, what does that look like for you?
Well, for instance, I would say that as early as when I was 12 years old, I had soul travel experiences, and I had no idea what that was about. I would feel myself begin to focus in as I was going to sleep, and it felt like the bed fell out from under me, and I had a sudden rush, an experience of heading into a starry universe with a bright light at the far end of it. And it was just this amazing thing that continued to happen to me again and again. And I knew nothing about Eckankar, which is sponsoring this IQ series at that time. And it wasn't until much later that I began to realize that that experience I was having, it was exactly what was described within these teachings.
Well, and that's fascinating, because at 12 years old, that's got to be kind of a little alarming when that first, you could be 55 years old and it's still going to be alarming when that happens. How did you kind of mentally deal with that, not knowing what it is?
Well, the thing is, it was filled with such love when it happened.
Yeah.
It wasn't a frightful experience for me, like I was being cast out of my body.
Gotcha.
In a way, people say that they have near-death experiences when they may be in a hospital and be under surgery and they die, or they're in an accident and they're knocked out and they find themselves outside of their body. Yeah. Well, that was the same kind of experience I had.
It's probably kind of, pleasant, like with me, I would, often find myself just laying in bed, and this whole starry thing was just always a theme with me as a youth, but I didn't know what it was, but it wasn't frightening. It was, I felt protected. I felt loved, but it could be, some things are really dramatic and you're,
Yeah.
And really, it just reaffirmed to me that I was eternal. I was not just my physical body. I was this eternal spark. And so I knew that from an early age. But I didn't have a definition of where to go with it at that point.
What is it really? And it's really just an expansion of consciousness. It's like we live in this world, so we're aware of this world. But we become more and more aware through these soul travel experiences and figure out our part in this whole universe, as opposed to just this thing here,
Well, and see, that's where I find this fascinating, because it seems like that's where you can really see some immense growth in your personal and spiritual and really any aspect of your life. You know what I mean? It just seems like that to me would be the stamp of, you're building and moving forward this way.
Yeah, soul travel is really the vehicle getting you to that point where you are touching the divine. You are experiencing Holy Spirit, or what we call the Ek, which emanates from God. And by connecting with that, you gain direct truth and divine knowledge. and expansion of your own consciousness and what that means to you in this physical world around us and what it means to you as soul. I mean, you're timeless and eternal. So you're in this life. And as some of the past sessions you've had talked about past lives and dreams, but we have been here many times before. You know, we have reincarnated, and we in a way, they say that many people are still asleep in this world because you don't understand that inner truth that's within you. You are gaining experience in this world, which is a classroom. It is not meant to be heaven on earth. It is a place of many challenges and many wonders, but at times frightening and hard to deal with. And you're wondering, what is this all about? And it's when you begin to actually ask within yourself, what is this about? How do I expand myself? How do I gain that knowledge of what I truly am and what is my purpose? Then you can just kind of wander around life and not really know what's going on.
Well, and see, that's where I think, especially in, my generation, you're seeing a lot of younger people that are really kind of having that same problem. And it's not just a generational thing. So many people do too. And you just kind of see it, and you see there's no light in them, there's not that spark, and it's really fascinating to see somebody who really does understand who they are and has that relationship with themselves and spiritually, because it's a whole different ball game, and it's like the weight of the world's lifted off someone's shoulders once that happens.
Yeah, it's like physical exercise.
Yeah,
you have to nurture it. You do daily what we call spiritual exercises, which are offered in an incredible booklet that we'll have available with the free books available at the thing on May 1st. But these spiritual exercises are meant to strengthen your connection with God, increase your ability to bring that divine love into your life and into the world around you.
Well, and on top of that, too, it seems like, for so many people that are confused, or you never know what happens in life, or maybe you're just having some tough mental times, it's stressful, you're anxious, you got all these things going on. A lot of that, I feel like, can help be mended with a spiritual journey like this, because you truly understand and identify yourself.
Right. And you figure out more of, like what Chuck said, who you really are. I'm not just, I'm not just Chuck. I'm not just Sheila. I'm not just CJ. I'm more than that. I am a spark of God. And where do I fit in this, play, this little play that we have going on? And, when you expand your consciousness, you figure out, okay, I might have done this because, or I need to know more about this because it's affecting my life, and it's just these inner little nudges from God that we get.
Well, and whenever you have those and you have that connection, I feel like for so many people, you see all those vices start to leave you too, because you don't need you know who you are, what journey you're a part of. And I think it just really goes overall to having a healthier life, because you aren't worried. You aren't just trying to get through the day,
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, as soul, God gives you free will.
Yeah.
So in this world that we're in, you have free will, but with that comes accountability and responsibility.
Very much so.
So everyone's journey is different in life. I mean, we're all equal souls. I mean, the billions on this earth, we're all equal souls. It's how do you awaken to that spiritual awareness that's deep within you? And each of us has a different experience, because we have taken on different roles and responsibilities through many lifetimes that have, in a way, attached to us with a concept of karma, which is cause and effect with the reincarnation concept. And you come back to this earth, and you really did sign a contract with God, in a sense, in that you are meant to awaken and become spiritually aware of the world around you and what your purpose is in life and in your relationship, who you are as soul, and your relationship with God. And you bring those experiences back and you begin to work them off. You dissolve that karma.
Right.
And by dissolving the karma, which acts kind of like a gravity, by dissolving the karma, you raise your spiritual consciousness and you begin to experience in the inner truth.
Well, and see, I think that's such an important thing too, that word karma. And we talk about this multiple times, Sheila, but it's, sometimes I think as people, we do a good deed and we expect one in return somewhere down the line. And that's just not how, life works.
One of the best things you can do is do something out of love each day, whatever it is, unannounced, pick up a cigarette butt off the ground,
Right.
whatever, serve somebody in some way, pet your dog, and
Right. Because it seems like, when we start to do the good deed because, we need to or we just want to, we are doing that for a different purpose. There's a premeditated purpose because we think, well, if I do this, then of course this is going to happen. Or because, on the flip side of that, because I did this, 25, 30 years, whoever knows how long, I'm never going to be the same. And that goes back to your point, Chuck, about, dissolving that karma and moving forward. And I think it's not even a denominational thing. This is to help strengthen anybody's relationship with God, and it's so important.
Yeah, and for people who don't maybe understand the laws of karma, it's, like Jesus said, as you sow, so shall you reap. Whatever you're putting out, it's going to come back.
Yeah.
And it's, and it's an exacting science, which, is sometimes a frightening proposal. But, you don't want to dwell on that. You want to move forward, with your life and be patient with yourself.
Yeah.
I've done this, but, I'm changing now. I'm willing to move forward and recognize myself as a spark of God.
Oh, yeah. And that's, something we've talked about because, I had quite a few years of fun and all of that and definitely bit off a lot more than I could chew and lost a business along all the things you could do. And, for years it was hard because that's what I kind of did is sat there and reevaluated. It's like, here's where you're at. Here's how you got there. Now, how can we keep moving forward and who are you? And I think if you answer all those questions, then eventually you realize you lay that cross down to bear and you're moving forward, so to speak, just to kind of connect the audience a little bit more to that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you can say in a sense, there are no bad experiences.
No,
I mean, you have experiences and you learn from that and you begin to grow. Once you open yourself up to concentrating your efforts towards finding yourself in spirit, then that is when the real benefits begin to happen. It doesn't necessarily take away those things from you. You're still responsible and accountable for the things that have happened.
100%.
And so you learn to dissolve that, but then you're able to bring that love. You're like a beam of light into the world, and it just helps to uplift. And that's just one of the purposes.
Yeah, and I think that the soul travel experiences and the really digging deeper is what helps you figure out for you, for CJ, for Sheila, what do I need to do next to move myself forward spiritually? Because my goal, and one of the goals of Ekankar is to move closer to God and to understand more your place in this, these worlds,
Well, and that's such a, for somebody that's maybe newer to that experience, it is frightening, because it could be because you're going back and you're really, given that microscope look a little bit and you're finding out things about yourself or maybe your thought like you would never have had before if you didn't have these discussions. So what is your advice for somebody, maybe they're new to this, they're watching the segments or they're kind of just interested about really discovering who they are. What's the initial period look like for them and what's the advice you could give them?
Well, it's certainly unique for each person. Yeah. Because you have developed these karmic ties over decades, eons, decades in this life, but in past lives. So you don't need to be in a rush, so to speak. But the best thing to do is to practice every day looking for that, strengthening that inner connection. And in this book that we have on raising your spiritual IQ, there are several spiritual exercises that are discussed that help to begin the imaginative process for you to be able to reach out and begin to expand your consciousness and the awareness of the many worlds that are within you. And from a broad prospect, it's amazing. It's almost like you're a spiritual warrior. You're on a hero's journey in a sense. Every one of us is. Mm-hmm. At some point in this life or another life, you are going to wake up. You're going to realize that this world is never going to be what I would want it to be. And I have a truer purpose, and that is to make my way back to God. And so by doing the spiritual exercises, you begin to open your awareness. It can take a week, 4 weeks, it could take longer, and everyone's experience is going to be unique. But you'll gain a tremendous sense of love at a minimum that just begins to flow into you, and it begins to level you out. Yeah. You begin to learn to surrender to God and God's will in a sense that begins to unwind the nervousness and anxiety that we may all feel in today's society. It puts you on a path.
It does, and that whole thing about, God's will, not my will. God knows far better what I need in my life than I have, a clue of,
100%.
And as far as, where to start, like Chuck said, the spiritual exercises are a great way to start. And we've talked about the hue, which is a love song to God. And you can sing it like that. And taking the time out every day, like you would for a physical exercise, to sing the hue, to connect with God in your own way. If you connect with God through prayer or, meditation, whatever it is. But taking the time, I think, and being patient with yourself. We can't get the big eraser on and go, oh, I'm going to be done with this and this and this. Or else, you find yourself flat somewhere going, wow, that was hard.
Well, it's so important, though, because you could be a millionaire at 25 and travel in the world, but when you're 65 and 70 and 80 years old, you're eventually going to have those conversations. It's never going to go away, and I think so many times, especially younger people, we do as much as we can, and middle-aged people do too, is you do as much as you can to kind of just put the blinders on, life's good, here's my routine, and we're sticking to it. And then eventually you realize it will come back to you, and you're going to have the conversation eventually, and I think that's such an important point too for maybe folks that are kind of curious about this.
Yeah, and I think, that recognizing that place that you find yourself in, like you said, is huge, and it helps us move forward. It helps us know that, this is not where I want to be, this is not my intent. I would love to be more of myself. And those things come to us through, dreams and these soul travel experiences. I know a big turning point in my life was I was only 15 when my oldest brother died. And he had polio and some developmental disabilities. And I was kind of always his protector, and he died quickly. He was only 23, I think. And I said, I kind of said to God, this doesn't seem right. I'd like to know a little bit more about it. I ask in my own young way, what's going on here. And I walked up to this little dairy by the house, and I was sitting there, because Jimmy always liked to go there. And I look up, and I didn't realize it at the time, but in retrospect, I was out of my body, and I see my brother, and he's riding around in the back of this black hot rod that his friend owned, that he loved cars. Anyway, so he's riding around, and I'm like, Jimmy, you're dead. He goes, no, I'm good. He said, I am dead, but I'm good. And, and then like the door closed, and I was like, what was that? And you share that with a parent, and they're like, yeah, whatever.
Right.
But, it was, for me, it showed me that there's more than just this life. He was happy, he was healthy, he was doing what he loved to do, and he wasn't like that in this, in this world. He was, anyway. But it was an incredible experience, and it made me start my journey on figuring out, what's really real.
That's incredible.
It was incredible.
That's just incredible.
Yeah, because it was a conversation like we're having here, and I was just like,
wow.
Yeah.
I mean, like I this absolutely takes the words out of your mouth, And why don't we do this? We'll take a quick break because I got to pay a bill, and we'll come back with more of this conversation and learn more about Thursday, May the 1st, over there at RiverBend Yoga. You are soul, an eternal creative atom of God, and you can discover the wonder of you with Soul Travel Explorations, Part 3 of the 3-part series. More next.
Get access to care for anyone, anywhere, at any time. No appointments, no waiting rooms, no traveling. OSF on call.
Village Dispensary has the best deals in Godfrey, Illinois, with specials 5 days a week. Mondays, roll in the week with 20 to 30% off select pre-rolls. Tasty Tuesdays, enjoy 20 to 30% off select edibles. Waxy Wednesdays, enjoy 20 to 30% off select concentrate and vape brands. Thirsty Thursdays, sip and save with 20 to 30% off all drinks. Flower Friday, grab select 3.5 gram flower deals starting at just $20. Village Dispensary, come meet your best buds.
Picture This and More has been a trusted name in the Alton community for more than 30 years, with the last 3 being right here on Broadway. We specialize in quality framing at affordable prices. We also feature works by local artists because we're proud of our community. If you have valued treasures to display and preserve, we're sure to have the perfect fit with our large selection of custom framing and display options. Whatever color, shape, or size, Picture This and More has the look you need. Stop by today and let us help you with your next project.
Looking for the best barbecue in Madison County? Head over to Carver's Barbecue in Godfrey, Illinois. From loaded barbecue nachos to mouth-watering pulled pork, brisket, ribs, and more, Carver's serves up award-winning flavors you'll love. Family-owned, Carver's is all about fresh, made in-house dishes served daily. Come visit us at 2716 Groveland in Godfrey, or give us a call at 618-467-9999. Order online, get it catered, or stop by for the best smoked meats around. Where great flavors meet family tradition, you'll find Carver's Barbecue.
You're listening to Our Daily Show with CJ Nasello on RiverBender.com.
Your number, no. I don't want to give you mine, and no, I don't want to.
Welcome back, 10:45, a little bit of change. Back with Chuck and Sheila. Coming up on Thursday, May the 1st at 1 p.m., it's the Soul Travel Explorations portion of the free spiritual experience series, Raise Your Spiritual IQ, and really Eckankar doing a great job of, helping put these events on and really just helping people gain a better understanding of themselves. And during this hour, what are we going to learn on Thursday? What are those conversations going to look like?
Well, I've shared before that I love hearing people's stories, and at our last presentation, there were several new people, and they shared, their experience and their questions, and it's a great place for listening, because you'll have people who are, members of Eckankar, or spiritual students, if you will, and then you'll have, people of all walks of life, and I love, listening and seeing them connect the dots with what they're doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's great to just share these experiences with each other and see if something really strikes a chord.
Yeah.
And the thing is, when you begin your inner explorations with using spiritual exercises, you're proving it to yourself. It's a direct experience. Yeah. There's nothing we can say that's going to convince you that these inner worlds exist within you. You have to want it. You have to desire it. You have to ask for that experience and take it before you go to bed, into your dreams. Look for a jumping off point that is going to spark that within you.
Well, and see, I think that's a fascinating conversation to have too, because sometimes, I feel like people ask for things, or people want things, and it could not, saying it's going to be winning the lottery tomorrow, because that's just unrealistic. But, maybe it's, finding, happiness, or I want this to happen next week, or I want that big promotion at work. And do you guys feel, and this is just an open-ended question, that can you ever receive that if you aren't truly honest and understand who you are spiritually? Because I feel like you really can't connect those dots until you really understand who you are. But I'm just curious to see what you guys think about that.
Well, certainly life is intended to give you, it's a school of hard knocks at times.
Yeah.
So sometimes there's sorrow, sometimes there's great happiness. All of those experiences you have, whether it's getting a new job, losing a job, losing a loved one, it makes you question. It's many times it can be the pain in life that makes you want to go deeper to try and find the inner truths. And
That's a good
that's
point.
when you should explore. That's when you should be a seeker. If you're a seeker, you should come to these series because it's
true.
If you're looking for something that wasn't ever explained to you, that you had experiences with, just like when I had those experiences at 12 years old of going through great distances through starry universes. My parents couldn't answer that. My preacher couldn't answer. I mean, they were looking at me like, well, he's got something going on. I'm not sure what it is.
Right.
And this is the kind of forum that will help you explore those things and realize you're not alone. You know from a direct experience that, wow, I'm eternal. I mean, this is, when I die, that's nothing. I mean, I have a saying of, I die daily. I mean, I'm doing spiritual exercises and leaving my body, not always remembering them, but coming back with this immense sense of love and gratitude for everything around me. And that's what the spiritual exercises are meant to do.
Yeah, and you never want to guide the exercise.
Right.
And it just is, it goes back to God's will. You want to say, if it's for the good of the whole, then may I find love, or,
Right.
And then you leave it, or you take your responsibility, your role in it. What can I do to better myself, to understand, and and you have to start out with loving yourself.
Right.
That's where it always starts. You love God, you love yourself, and then you can love others. So
100%. And that's why I'm so excited to be talking with you guys about these series, because it all goes back hand in hand to that. I mean, the way these are structured was really kind of perfectly done and produced, because, the past lives and the present lessons is a great first step, but also, the true dream worlds, and seeing, where those dreams are and what those signs are. And also now putting that together with soul travel, it seems like this is really that perfect way to introduce people to what, these free spiritual experiences are, number one, but also what Eckankar's kind of is all about, and really the spiritual journey as a whole too.
Yeah, and we're just, trying to raise people's spiritual IQ, to understand a little bit more about what's really going on. Like I said,
Hey, hold on. You guys don't think I'm not serious. Hold on. I still have all of my books.
Good job.
This one I still have to work on, but these are the ones I've already read from Sheila and Flora.
Wow. Yeah.
And they work. I promise you, they do work. Sorry, show and tell time's over.
And we didn't pay him to do that at all.
No,
I mean, it's been a great growing experience having these conversations with you, because you're very inquisitive and you want to change, as we all do. At some point in our lives.
The people don't know this, but I was kind of going through the ringer the last couple of times whenever you guys were first coming on the show, and it was perfect timing, because it kind of helped me take a little bit of a pause and reflect a little bit, and then work a little bit more on it, because I mean, it was not good for a couple of weeks with all the stresses of life, but it all cleared up. And it's those having those conversations and knowing, like you said, Chuck, you aren't alone out there. If you're a seeker, go and be with a group of seekers and figure out and seek the truth, because that's really it. And it really did go a lot further for me than you all realized too. So it's kind of perfect timing. It's the universe again, and God, huh?
Exactly. And you brought up a really important point. You have to ask your inner guide, whether it's Jesus or Buddha or, with us, it's the living Master Harold Klemp. Ask that inner guide, sincerely, with your heart completely open, for whatever you need to grow spiritually. And it'll happen.
Let me ask you this question, and this is a hard question, I think, to answer, or maybe it's a very simple one, and it just doesn't need to be that, diluted. But, whenever you're asking those things, and whenever you're trying to put that out there, how important is it for you to truly understand what you're asking for? And that it seems like because to me, I feel like, especially with younger people and all that, we want X, Y, and Z, but we don't realize, like you talked about karma earlier, the cause and effect of wanting certain things. And what's the best practice, do you think, to kind of understand and identify if it's truly a want, if it's truly a need, or if it's actually just a want or anything else?
Well, that's a really good question. I mean, I would simply define it as saying, if you want love in your life, okay, if you want God's love, then you just simply ask for a divine love or presence to come into your life, and let it be. Don't try to guide what your experience needs to be. I mean, God is going to bring you everything that you need in experience in life, and just open yourself up with trying to be a pure channel for spirit, and let that flow through you. And then the magic is going to happen. It's going to go around with you. And even like we said, you're not alone in this world, but there are spiritual travelers and masters, and some people call them angels. I mean, there are divine presence for each of us out there to help guide us. And Eckankar teaches you that. I mean, I was in my bed as a youngster at 12 to 14, and I began having experiences of waking up in my astral body, and there was a master there who was reading a book to me and explaining things. I cannot tell you exactly what it was, but probably 5 years down the road is when I found my first book on Eckankar, and it was exactly what he had been reading to me. So I knew, for me, there was absolutely no doubt that of the truth of this kind of experience and teaching, but that was just my experience. And so everyone has to go out and find their own truth, and just start with love, ask for the best experience you can have, and let God provide.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, and you also, I think imagination sometimes comes in getting that off that starting block. I want to have this spiritual experience. I want to have a soul travel experience. So you have to start somewhere with what you know. You might find yourself in your kitchen, with your eyes closed, and go into the living room and recognize the chair. And, you start with familiar things. And then when you find yourself in these other worlds, you're not as amazed, you're not as sometimes scared, but not really, because I always feel protected.
That's what I was going to ask you too, because, out of all of this, I'm sure it comes to a point, and it has with me, I told you about this too. There's a fear, and it's a lot of times, I don't want to say irrelevant, because I don't feel like anyone's fear is irrelevant, because it all is matter of fact to them. But, we decide, hey, I'm going to do this. I want to explore who I am. But there's this fear of, well, what if, number one, I don't like that person? Number two, what if it's, I'm off to the wrong start? What if I manipulated myself into creating believing these certain aspects of what I want? And what if it all fails? What if I'm doing this for nothing? And that's where I think this conversation is interesting, because what's your just sentiment for folks that maybe are kind of fearful about going through and exploring this and discovering some things?
Well, I would say you should never be fearful about finding love. Okay, no one's trying to manipulate you in what's we're putting out there.
Right.
It's simply one of sincerely ask for love, surrender yourself to God, and look for the experiences to come. And when that direct truth and experience comes to you, it's going to change the color of your entire world, because you're going to be looking at it through a different lens. You're gonna see it from the perspective of an eternal force and guidance that exists deep within inside you. All you have to do is find the key to unlock that puzzle box.
Very interesting.
Yeah, and to really take responsibility again, it's like that's what you shared. We have to take responsibility for our own spiritual growth in whatever way you see fit. And I don't think there's any wrong thing to do. You can plead with God to win the lottery, and then you can drop dead when you win it,
Right.
Yeah, be careful what you ask for. You might get it. But, it's true. And when you talked about specifying or specificity, whatever that word is, what you would like. And then for me, it's like, if it's for the good of the whole,
And if you do those exercises on a regular basis, you're basically, by bringing God's presence within you, you're purifying you. You're cleansing, and you begin to see clearly what is in store for you.
And one final, I guess, just thought on this before we go back to overviewing this event one last time and saying so long for now is, whenever you do that exploration and you go into that, check and balance system and holding yourself accountable, what's your advice for somebody who can't get past the action, if that makes sense? Maybe, and it doesn't have to be anything bad. Maybe it's just one of those things where they just can't shake the thought of it, or they can't shake the feeling. What's your advice to those people, and how do you combat that?
You mean get past the action?
Yeah, like just an action of, like I look back and let's say I was I did something, 7 years ago, and I just was I didn't like the way I was, and I made some people feel bad. And this isn't a real thing. It's just kind of me coming up with a hypothetical just for the audience. And it's getting past that final, man, you did this to people. You know what I'm saying? How do you get past that final hurdle of, you acknowledged it, you took accountability, you know what you did was terrible, wrong or whatever happened, but you just can't, it seemed to get past that final lay the cross down moment. And I hate to keep going back to that, but that's just what we kind of all know that term of. Mm-hmm. Is there any advice that you have for people like that? Is there more exploring to do then? Is that what that means?
For me, you always want to move forward. You never want to dwell in the past. You can glance at it and go, yeah, that was me then. But here I am now. I'm wanting to move forward. And whatever baby step you can, move forward. Forgive yourself or write a letter, and maybe not mail it to that person, that you wronged. Or, for me, one of my spiritual exercises when I got stuck in my head about not forgiving somebody was to sing forgiveness, whatever, or just to think it, to pray it, whatever way you do it. And it helped me to let go of that problem. Yeah. So we're each unique in what we have going on in our lives, and we want more of divine love. We don't just want, when we talk about love, it's divine love. Right. It's not just physical. It's not physical love.
And that's the most, you have to have that to really live a happy and full life, And Chuck, before we overview this, anything else you wanted to add to what Shelia said? Well,
I think she had a great point. It's hard because all of those things you're talking about are attachments that we have in this world. And you're responsible for eventually dissolving all of those attachments. Yeah. One exercise that comes to mind is one where you take that state of whatever you were in at that time and that you may not have turned out the way you wanted it to be. You need to go in and basically surrender to spirit itself and say and picture and begin using your creative imagination to say, this should have turned out differently. And you begin running it like a movie within your mind of it having a better outcome and asking for forgiveness and God's gratitude. And it will begin to dissolve and work out within your life as it should.
Absolutely. And guys, thank you so much for a great conversation. Yeah. But before we say goodbye for now, Thursday, May the 1st, you're coming on again, aren't you, before then?
Yeah, we are. I think the Monday prior.
That's right. But you can mark your calendars now because a few new additions the last time I heard too. So that's good. And we can keep growing that because I'm telling you, you're going to take something out of it each and every time. The free spiritual experience series, Raise Your Spiritual IQ, Thursday, May the 1st, Riverbend Yoga, right down the road at 100 West 3rd Street. I can't believe I remember their address, but I don't know mine. Soul travel explorations will be the topic of this in about an hour conversation again.
Yeah. And if you want to know a lot more about Eckankar than we've just touched, you can go to eckankar.org, and there's so much on there.
And don't forget that a part of this is getting a free book. This time will be on soul travel exploration.
Not that you can see that, but
and we'll link it. And then the Raise Your
Spiritual IQ,
and that has the work, some of the exercises that we could do as well. And seriously, thank you guys so much for a good Monday morning interview.
Thank you, CJ.
I'm out of time. I hope you guys had a good old day. I know that I had a decent morning too. Easter week off to a good start. I got only 3 more days left to work this week. I'm actually taking Friday off. No Daily Show.
Good deal.
I'll see you tomorrow. Until then, try your best to stay out of jail.